during
You're
these
not
meetings because.
sure you're
But
not the only one. You're not the only one who has this challenge these days.
yep. Okay. So Dan, thank you again for joining. We're here to talk about Adobe Creek. So I don't know if you could give a quick introduction to yourself and the topic, and then we could have a discussion, and other people may be joining in as they see
Okay.
this. So please, why don't you go ahead?
All right. My name's Dan Mahoney. I'm a old-time Palo Alto resident. I live in Old Palo Alto. I've been here since 1976, and use a lot of the functions and features of the city. I'm retired tech exec. IBM, a number of other companies after that. Was the chief research officer at Forrester Research right before I decided to retire. Now all I do is consult. But I also ride my bike and ride every other day. And I do 20-mile rides, 20 to 25-mile rides every other day. And I go out to the Baylands a lot. So I use the bike bridge that's down off Oregon Expressway to go over to the Baylands sometimes, and then about half the times I use the bridge under the creek or the tunnel under along the Adobe Creek. Works just fine. You have a mission in front of you because you're being handed a budget deficit, which is ridiculous, and you have to figure out how to handle all of that. Now, I've gone through all of this stuff as executives in multiple companies, and so I was just going through a whole bunch of ideas of my own, and I figured I would pass them along to you.
I would love to hear them, please.
Well, the first, obviously the most expensive thing that any organization has is people and salaries and so on, and the support, the pensions, all of that other kind of stuff. But we'll put that on the side for a second, because those are really tough decisions to make, because they directly affect people, individuals. But those are important, and because they directly, handle or affect individuals, you want to be really careful about a lot of that stuff. There are other things that you can do, and this is why I'm making this call to you. One of them is the bike bridge at Adobe Creek. Now, there's all sorts of different numbers that are thrown around as far as how much the city is putting into that bike bridge and whatever. And the question to me basically is, it can be postponed. It's not necessary to do that right now. And that's a lot of money. Any way you look at it, they talk about $18 million that it's going to be, but we're going to get $4 million from these guys and $4 million from those guys and $1 million from Google or whatever. It's still going to be around $9 or $10 million, and you don't know how much it's going to be until it's done.
Sure.
But you're looking for money. And to me, that it hasn't started yet. The planning has, but it hasn't started yet. It's something that can be postponed, and you can do that down the road. 2 years is not going to hurt to postpone something like that. It's a huge expense. Much better than laying the people off or cutting the library services or the police and fire and all of those other things that you need to address. Those are directly affecting people's lives. Right now, there already is a tunnel there. It works. I use it. So putting a bridge over the freeway can be postponed. That's the basic thing that I'm trying to get across. And I hope that somebody thinks about that.
It seems to make sense to me, right? Because but I have taken that tunnel. I think the one challenge for the tunnel is that it's probably closed more than it should be, because most of the time I go there, it's not flooded over, but they have the gate shut just an arbitrary time of the year, even though there may not be a lot of rain. So one way to help would be to probably only close it really when there's a rainstorm, right? Versus closing it all the time. Like, so that would probably, um, be one way to mitigate,
Right.
right?
They leave it open for half the year. It's unlocked. The other half of the year, they just shut it down, even when it's not raining, and they
Yeah,
don't necessarily need to. And it's pretty easy to have somebody monitor the thing and see how the water level is under there. And if it isn't flooded, then leave it open. If there seems to be rain in the forecast, or it did rain or whatever, then close it. That's fine. Then the people, if they want to walk over there, they can walk over San Antonio Road. That's granted, it's dangerous and there's cars
yeah,
going around and so on, but it's not like you don't have to, you can't get over there, and so on. So I'm just sort of saying, boy, there's savings that you can think about.
yeah. That's a good point. Now, also, there's another underpass. I don't know. It's like a secret underpass. A few. I forgot the exact street, but there's another one, that goes underneath the freeway. It's not an official one, but it's open year round. Um, there's a it's
North, north of
north
there or
north
south
north of
of
that,
there?
north of there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. That's
There's one more underpass where you just have to lift your bike. It's not an official trail, but if you just lift your bike, you could actually, yeah. So there's another one which is open year round, which sometimes people have to resort to because of the fact that it's kind of shut down more than it should be, perhaps.
but if for people on bikes, you're trying to get over to the Bay Lanes. You have the Oregon Expressway. You also have the one now down at Google, down in Mountain View, that that they had put in over there. They both go out to the Bay Lanes. It means you have to ride a little bit further,
Yeah,
but you're riding. It's a little different than the walkers. But
yeah,
the people who are riding, you should be able to see that. So to me, that's an easy. Okay, let's take a few $1 million and save it over here instead of knocking off people.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, also like this. Then there's also that one other secret, or not, or less well known underpass under the freeway. It's about 1 block or 2 blocks north of there. So,
so
um,
maybe we make sure that people know where that
well,
one.
I don't think it's an official underpass, but
There
yeah,
is there is one where the creek goes, if that's the one that you're talking
I
about.
think so. I think so. Yeah,
There's a path built along the spillway,
yeah.
kind of, that never gets flooded because they built the spillway. So, well,
Yeah.
that's what you're.
I
But
think I think I think I think we're talking about the same thing there. Have you taken that route before?
I have not taken that route. I've obviously ridden over it, and stuff, and seen it more in South Palo Alto. There's as you're driving and riding along there. But yeah, that's another option.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I'm all for I'm sure that there are people who live down there uh, who want to get to the Baylands and they want a safe way to get there, and say, God bless them. Uh, but now is not the time to spend that kind of money when you're talking about laying people off, or and things like that. And you're talking about laying people off. Are you talking about people taking a pay cut? All of that. These are all things that we've gone through. I'm sure you've gone through it at your company and so on. You had a tough, if you had a tough quarter or a tough year, oh, by the way, you're not getting raises. And I know I get the union thing, and you
Yeah.
know, I feel sorry for you having to deal with all of that. But there are other people who are out there that would rather take a pay cut than lose their job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, right now, because of union contracts, we have to give the pay raises. We're supposed to give the pay raises, but that's like $9 million, right? So it's a year, right? So, um, and so at a time when just so far the staff is just talking about a projection of a portion of the general fund being $41 less, and
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot more budget that we haven't really talked about in terms of what kind of revenue drop we're going to have. And it's yeah, a lot of kind of decisions have to be made in terms of how do we prioritize what do we spend money on, right?
Well,
So
I think that the unions may be more amenable to saying, okay, we'll hold things off if they saw everybody else taking taking
Yeah,
a, taking a hit also. You know, they don't want to be the only ones taking a hit. So that's just something that you got
yeah.
to make sure that it's fair and so on. I mean, the union's job is to represent those people, and if they see other people taking a hit too, then maybe they would be more amenable to that.
Well, I've seen some other cities or other organizations. Like I know, like the Santa Monica, the city manager he volunteered for a 20% pay cut in Santa Monica. I know, like at Stanford, they all took 20% pay cuts. All the top execs took 20% pay cuts. Um, so I mean, it's
Is the HR manager for a web startup in Manhattan, in New York. They cut 25% of their company. They laid off 25% of the company, and the rest of the company took a 20% pay cut just to survive.
yeah. I mean, so it's actually a fairly common strategy. So you don't have to lay people off. You don't have to cut the services, because 80% of our budget really is people. And
Yep.
so if people would just take even a 10% pay cut, it would. I mean, so far $40 million. So our total budget was 755, right? 755 million. 40 million is like about 5%, about 5% of that. So if they just took a 10% pay cut, we would be actually okay, right? So
And the thing is that again, if it's across the board, then people will feel better about that. It's not like I'm telling you and you and you to
uh,
that these guys over here are going to be fine. If it's across the board, then everybody will feel better.
well, the other thing is, we spent over $1 million on 5 social media public relations people in our city, and I don't know. I mean, in your opinion, is that essential for us to keep to spend
Not
that kind of money?
not not now. Again, these are all things that from your point of view, positioning it in a way that uh, we're not eliminating this. We're postponing it. We'll get back to it. We know it's important. We know it's that people want this. We know that, but right now we can't do it. So for the next 2 years, give them some kind of a scope and say, look, we don't know what the budget's going to be like this year. Here's the projections. Next year, by the way, our budget's based on businesses coming back, and we don't know how business is going to come back. The hotels and restaurants and all of that other kind of stuff, and Stanford Shopping Center and whatever. We don't know. We're not sure how. So next year we may still have the problem. So plan on 2 years, and then we'll be. We're a resourceful, talented, uh, or group of people. It will come back, but right now, yeah, I think we need to postpone.
Yeah, I mean, we also have. I would love to get your thoughts on this. So we have the public safety building that we're planning to build, which is 100 million plus, right? So it's a very very big project. What's your thoughts on
Yep.
that item?
It, it's working fine now. Not it's not working as great as it could be in their current location. Uh, but again, this is in that postpone
Yeah,
and so on. Those are physical um, structures and, and stuff like that that we're spending money on that we will need in the future. But the question is just pushing it off a little bit. Yeah, I would vote for pushing that off.
the other thing, and you've been a exec, so I would love to get your thoughts on this. So in our city, for every 4 employees, we have one manager. So it's like 4 to 1, right? So yeah, so I guess let me ask you that. I mean, most places I've worked at, usually it's 7 to 1 or 8 to 1, right? And so I guess what's your thoughts about that kind of span of control in terms of there's a you know like our city manager's office, we spend like $4 or $5 million, right? Which is extraordinary for a city our size. What's your thoughts about, you know, should we change some of the span of control? Is it okay to have 4-to-1, or should we try to, you know, maybe it's a little bit top heavy?
It's great to have 4-to-1 if you can afford it. Having close management employee relations is great. I have never worked in an organization that has 4-to-1. We always worked minimum 7 up to, there were times I had 15, but it was, it, you know, it's a function of the skill of the managers. And if you put the resources into hiring good managers and training them on how to manage, you can easily do 8 to 10 to 1. You don't need 4-to-1. What are they doing? The thing is, if it's 4-to-1, the managers are doing the work, where they should be, because you don't need that. Because you don't need that one person as overhead. If it's 10-to-1 or 8-to-1 to 10-to-1 and stuff, managers are managing, so they have to know how to manage. Let the workers do the work. And one of the things I do is management consulting.
Oh, this is a perfect question for you.
So, but you have to train them on how to manage, and you have to measure them on how they are managing, and so on. So then it's the next level up. It had to be a second level manager or a third level manager, and so on. So there's all sorts of different things, responsibilities like that. At Forrester, I had, where I ended, we had first level managers probably at 8-to-1, and they weren't even really pay card managers. They were directors. They were directing the work and stuff. The next person up worked with them, of which there were probably 5 to 7 working up to the second level. They worked most of the personnel issues and different things like that with the individuals. So there's all sorts of different ways that you can structure it. But I find this happens to be a problem that I have with unions. It makes the managers lazy because they don't have to really think about the people. The people are, my whole experience has been in pay for performance. So you have to set up a performance plan. You have to measure people against the performance plan, and then if they're knocking it dead, they're doing great. If they're not knocking it dead, then you have you take action, train them better, or if you need to let go of them, you let go of them. But the idea that somebody automatically just gets a raise,
Yeah.
That's always been confusing to me.
Yeah, I've been pushing pretty hard for that, like some sort of pay for performance, because in the private sector, as higher you go, more variable your pay is depending on the organization's performance.
Sure.
And in public sector, I found that it's all fixed pay no matter how good or bad your performance is, and I don't think incentives are aligned that way. And so
Right.
I've been pushing for that, but my colleagues
Well,
have supported me on that idea.
you're not going to change that. That's a hill too high to climb at this point. However, you can say that the managers are responsible for doing certain things for a larger group of people, and you can start to eliminate levels levels like that. And again, you set it up, and this is the city manager's job too. You got to lean on him, but you set it up so that people have their objectives, and you measure them against their objectives, and you really measure them against their objectives. You know,
Yeah. I don't know if that happens as much as I personally would like, because I think that's the way to operate.
yeah,
But I think there's more entitlement, unfortunately, than
absolutely. Well,
yeah,
what ends up happening is after a point in time, I mean, you know, it used to be bonuses was a deal that I used to deal with a lot, and uh, and people just kind of ended up expecting the bonuses. You know, you'd say in the beginning of the quarter, or in the beginning of the, whatever the period is, or the beginning of the year, or whatever, you'd say, okay, here are your objectives. If you meet those objectives, then this is what your bonus will be.
yeah,
Well, after 3 years, they were expecting that bonus as part of their salary.
yeah,
You know, and then you say, you know, one year the company didn't make it didn't make plan. You
yeah.
know, and then you have to go back to them and say, hey, by the way, you know that bonus, it isn't coming, and so on, and then people get all upset and so on. So you have to make sure that people understand the relationship between their objectives, meeting those objectives, and getting paid.
So I don't know if we necessarily have a culture right now, but how do we get there? What's the right way? I mean, I love the fact that you're a management consultant, you probably had to deal with this. How do you move an organization that pretty much doesn't operate like that right now to something where it becomes a little bit more performance oriented?
Well, I'll tell you, you have a unique opportunity because you have an external force
Mm,
that's causing you to make this decision. It isn't like you came in and said, "Oh, gee, I just don't like it like that." Um, you now have a reason for this. You know, we don't have the budget, guys, so we need to think outside the box. So you have something in your quiver to say, uh, you know, we're coming up with ideas, and here is an idea, and this is the way that we have to do it because this is an unusual situation, and
mm,
so we're going to make the change now, in because we have to. And
mm.
so, I mean, in actuality, you have a unique opportunity now to do that, to say, okay, we're going to start getting more toward pay for performance. It's not that you're, you know, by the way, there's another little thing that bothers me in the back of my mind that just popped up, which is overtime.
Oh yeah. Did you see the amount of overtime that some people get?
Un- well, I'll tell you,
Like doubles their pay essentially, right?
I have a nephew who is a firefighter in San Diego, for the city of San Diego. When he first signed on to the city of San Diego,
Yeah.
uh, he was assigned to a firehouse, and he was working 40 hours. You know, kaboom, 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 40 hours, no more, because the chief took the overtime. The chief had more base, had a higher base, so his time and a half meant more money to him. So the chief hung out for the overtime instead of having the lower paid guys do the overtime. And it really hit me to say that the people who were making the decision as to who was going to work overtime were the people who were getting more rewarded by it.
Yeah.
And so there was just something to watch. They're not all bad people.
No, I don't think people are bad, but it was interesting. This article came out in the uh, Post, right? And um, it talked
By the way,
about.
you have another.
Can you hear me? Okay? Do you see my screen?
Yeah, yeah. Do you have another? Have to make it. I just picked up Justin's shared screen here.
Oh no, it's my shared screen. Do you see the
Ah,
daily post?
okay.
Do you see this?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of overtime, it was interesting to the article talked a little bit about that, right?
Yep.
Um, so let's see. So basically 145,000 in overtime,
Right.
right? And then this guy, Agent Moore, or this person, 164,000 in overtime.
So the question that gets raised, and this is something that Shikata uh, has to answer to the city about, is why is that guy doing the overtime?
Yeah.
Is it really necessary for that guy to do the overtime? Or if it's necessary to have somebody do the overtime, does it have to be the highest paid guy?
Yeah. So and there's actually 6 people who got more than 100,000 in overtime,
Yep.
right? So yeah, so it's kind of interesting to
Yep.
see. Um, so how do you control stuff like that? Because I would think most people in the city would think this is a bit excessive, but um,
I'll tell you, yeah, and this is something that you probably have the ability, is you put Shikata's pay based on handling all of that stuff correctly. I mean, you guys pay Shikata,
yeah,
and it trickles down. I mean, I had the CEO and me, and then everybody else under me,
yeah,
and I mean, he came to me many times and says, "You got to handle this." And if this is something that is a concern, which it is, and it should be, then you lay it in his lap, and you can make suggestions to him about how he handles it, but you can also say, "And these are things we watch, Ed." You know, uh, it, I'm sure that somebody says, I mean, these are uh, police and fire and stuff like that. And yes, God knows we need the police and fire.
yeah.
What's the reason why they're working so much overtime? And can someone who is lower paid,
He actually made more than the police chief, right? It's yeah. So the police chief made 422. These guys made like 454 and 460, right?
right? So you know what? I could hire 3 cops for that price. I can hire 3 more police for that. Is it necessary for Adrian Moore to have worked? Oh, by the way, both Adrian and Christopher Moore isn't that interesting that it's the same name,
I wonder if there's any connection. That's actually interesting. Yeah.
to work that much? And by the way, where are they in their retirement? Are they about to retire next year? So this is the one thing that my nephew found, that the guy who was going to be retiring is pumping up all of, because their retirement benefits are based on the 454, not
Yeah.
on 334. The retirement benefits are based on the amount of money that they made those last years, not their base salary.
Yeah. So it's like pension spiking, right? Essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a perfect example to go to Ed and say, can you explain those two? Are they related? I have no idea whether they're related. The name is the same, but why are they the people that have to work that overtime?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and then you say, Ed, it's now your job. And like I said before, right, you're in a unique situation. This is a unique time. Uh, you have to cut $40 million from the budget, and you have an excuse for looking at this. It isn't like, hey, I just don't like doing it. The way that things happen. You have an excuse now to go in and say, we need to cut the money. And so, Ed, this is on your back to go through and do this. And the way to do this is you pay for performance, you watch the overtime, and so on and so forth. It's got to get cut. And you kind of say to him, the overtime that you got, that you paid out in those $120,000 worth of overtime for each one of those people. which is X percent and stuff like that. You add up the whole overtime.
Yeah, we actually have that somewhere. Let me see. Overtime. Uh, yeah. So this is the average. So the average firefighter gets about 22,000. Average police officer is like 17,000. This is the average. Um, the average Palo Alto employee is about 231,000.
Just the one thing that you just said, the average police, or firefighter
Mhm.
gets $21,000. These
Yeah.
and these two got 120.
Well, it was actually 160, but yeah, like the person, I think the newspaper article said um, that they got 164,000 in overtime.
Well, some of that has to do with benefits too.
So I think this is just overtime.
Oh, all
This,
right.
yeah,
I-
no, the benefits are a whole nother thing because we have
Right.
like pensions that we pay for, and then there's unfunded pensions that we will pay for, but it doesn't officially show up. So there's unfunded pensions. If you do that, then this number becomes even higher, right? This becomes like even.
So the thing is, for you, you say to Ed, this is unacceptable. $164,000 when the average is 21. That's okay. All right. The average is 21. And these guys got 160. That's unacceptable. I don't want to see that next year, or else you're not going to get your bonus.
Well, there's no, his pay is kind of fixed. There's no
He doesn't get
variable.
he doesn't get any bonus.
There's no I was pushing for it actually because I thought there should be, pay for performance because that way the interest align, right?
Right.
But I couldn't convince my colleagues. So no.
Again, this may be one of the ways to go back at your colleagues and say, we've seen a lot of inequities, and oh, by the way, we can't afford it anymore. Take a look at this. We're losing $40 million. We have to do something. So one of the things we should do is put some people on pay for performance so that will incent them to watch these numbers.
Hey
Yeah,
Greg,
I
we're
agree.
running pretty overtime, so
Okay. Well, Dan, you've been incredibly generous with your time. I love talking with you just because I'm having to deal with this tomorrow. It's actually, did you actually get a chance to look at this at all, the proposal from the staff?
No, I did not.
Okay. But if you get a chance, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. So, um,
Can you send that to me?
yeah, yeah. Justin, can you send this to well, maybe I don't know if Justin knows where I'm looking. I'll send it to you. But I'd love to get your thoughts on it. This is this this item here is what we're hearing tomorrow, and it's about how do we close the gap between what we thought we were going to make to what we're probably going to make,
Right.
and and so but it seems like you have a lot of knowledge in this area, and I'd love to get thoughts from you on what
Great.
we can do that would help.
No problem.
Okay, I'll send it to you. Thank you so much.
Dan@mahoney.net.
Okay, I'll email it to you. Appreciate it. Well, thank you for taking time out of your
Okay.
weekend
So
to
Dan@mahoney.
yeah, thank you so much for taking time to speak with me. I really appreciate it. I'll send it to you right after the call, and please send me your thoughts on it. I really appreciate it.
Good luck to you.
Okay, bye bye.
Right.